Hi, I'm Fahmida and I love adventure, traveling, and my guilty pleasures are fantasy books.
What's your favorite fantasy book?
So my favorite fantasy book is The Ballet of Never After by Stephanie Garber. It's a
I,
pretty nice book. I really love reading that.
just to quickly introduce you to the listeners, for listeners, that's Fahmida Zahin. She's a sophomore at the University of Buckingham. So U Buckingham is probably how I'll be referring to the university throughout this episode. She's pursuing medicine, eventually on the path to becoming a doctor after a ton of studying that lies ahead. But today, I think we'll just be hearing more from Fahmida about the choices she's made, the lessons she's learned along the way, and an insight and wisdom for young high schoolers like yourself listening to the episode who have an interest in like maybe medicine or the UK or the specific university. And hopefully, a lot of the insights we share here are helpful for you along your journey. I mean, in my mind, the my biggest goal would be that my younger brother doesn't make the same mistakes I made while applying to university and during university. And so I think we have the same goal for all of you juniors listening to the podcast. We're happy to help and sort of guide you, be very honest about the mistakes we made along the way, if that improves your journey. So I think welcome to Uni Unveiled. I'm your host, Arya the Road. I currently study at Minerva University. Welcome, Famida. Excited for the conversation.
My pleasure.
Awesome. I think what's going to be interesting about this conversation for sure is that for listeners, this has probably been the hardest one to set up because we've had to reschedule a few times. And so Famida will also be smiling guiltily, but it was never for like a tiny reason that we rescheduled. Like you were always at an event or at a conference, or you had this interview for XYZ internship, or you were meeting this professor. And so you've been up to like you're keeping yourself very busy even beyond the classroom and doing a lot of interesting things at university. And I'd love to be talking about some of those things on this episode. So I'm glad I finally sort of forced you and made you come on the podcast. But I'm excited to hear about a lot of the things you've been up to over the last 1+ year, in fact. The very first question I will start with is if you were to describe the first two terms of your university experience so far, you've been in the UK for quite a few months now, away from home. In one sentence, how would you describe the experience?
It has been exhilarating, exciting, sometimes very tiring, but at the end, rewarding. So I just gave you all the describing words I feel for the last two terms. It's been a roller coaster ride of emotions,
Yeah.
but at the end, it just all came into the picture and fit perfectly. So I'm very grateful. Like
Mhm.
it's been an amazing journey so far.
Mhm. Yeah, gratitude is a great emotion to sort of as an antidote to like anger or sadness or homesickness or tiredness. Just being grateful for the fact that you're privileged enough to be in a country away from home, pursuing a college degree, which is like not everyone gets to even like have that college education. So I like that we started off with a note of gratitude. When you're on days like on very hectic days, like today also seems like a hectic day for you when it's sort of tiring or you sort of have lack of sleep. What's your motivation? Like what actually keeps you going? What's the dream?
The dream has always been to do my best. Because the profession I have chosen, we have like a very gray small area to be making mistakes. But of
Mm,
course, mistakes are inevitable. But then imagine costing someone's life because of your mistake can be very daunting to think of.
mm,
So my motivation is always like I need to do my best, at least from my end, so that even though if it's and the mistakes are sometimes inevitable, I want to make sure that from my part I'm doing my best and try not to commit the mistakes, and especially never repeat the mistakes again and again. So even on a day I'm very tired and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do, I just remind myself that no, you need to get up and do the work. If in the because you want your future self to be proud of what you are doing now, like 10 years down the lane, I want to be looking back at my high, like, college experience and be like, oh wow, okay, thank god the younger family that worked so hard that
mm,
I've been able to come here now. That's the thing I also said to my high school self, like no matter how bad you feel, how alone you feel, or maybe you are in some problems or whatever, you want your future self to kind of look back at it and be like, oh wow, I pulled through that. Oh God, just have that sense of fulfillment. So I feel like working for the older Fahmida, like working for the better older version of yourself is like a good motivation. And of course your parents who have worked so immensely hard to get you here.
Yeah.
Like I remember my parents sending me, like I'm a single child, them sending me away in boarding first of all was so hard and so difficult to convince. Then coming to the UK, so even they have been through a lot in this journey, and I, even though they don't really get disappointed a lot, I always have that I don't want them to give, I don't want them to have a reason to be disappointed on or regret them sending me here, or so it's kind of like in the back of my mind sometimes. So I guess these are my biggest motivating factors: working for my parents, working for my older self. Yeah.
I love that. Very emotional, very inspirational. That's something I needed to hear. It's about 15 days before I fly for my second year of university. So I'm glad you sort of also said that to me. That was a good pep talk. But I think something I'll also say here is one of the podcasters I really enjoy listening to is this guy called Ranveer Alabadia. He runs the Ranveer Show. Highly recommend. He keeps saying that every young person's life, there needs to be 6 years of just heads down, pedal to the metal, a lot of effort. And so he calls it like gisai or mehnat. So it's just hard work and effort. And that will set you up for success for pretty much the rest of your career. And so mentally, before flying to San Francisco for my first year at Minerva, I told myself that this is going to be the 6 years of my life that I work crazy hard. So 2023 to 2029, that's going to be those 6 years. That's going to set me up for success for 2029 to like 2050 and beyond and beyond. I think for many people, those few years of like intense work can be college. But if you really optimize for whatever you're optimizing for in the university experience, it truly will set you up for you'll start college here and you'll end college like here, and you'll be like very much prepared for what's to come in terms of the journey ahead. And so I'm sure that the hard work you do now is sort of also building like some sort of mental strength, which will help you like tackle challenges, which will keep coming on later in life. So sorry, that was my little like rant there, but you also got me a little motivated in that sense. You mentioned being the only child, flying so far away from home. India, I have friends doing medicine in India, having a good time, good universities, good education overall. Why did you choose to like fly all the way to the UK? Like, what attracted you about studying in the UK?
All right. That was a journey. Like even that itself was a journey, coming to the point, thinking that I want to go to the UK. So I'm from a CBSE background. Up till grade 10, I was in CBSE and I was also in coaching. So in ninth grade, I was in LN Coaching Center, which is a NEET PG, and so NEET UG and JEE Advanced coaching. And I wanted to try out both. So I was enrolled there and I was doing pretty well there and pretty happy also. I had good friends, amazing mentors, and I had a good time. It wasn't, for some weird reason, wasn't really hectic for me, the coaching experience. Like some people really do dread that experience, but for me, I don't know, I think I got into the process of learning and relearning and unlearning, then again learning the same thing. That was a philosophy we had back then, because sometimes the things we know aren't always the right one. So I liked it, but I had this mentor. His name was I would want to mention his name because he did play an important role into how I am shaping my goals for the future. So his name was Mayank sir, and he used to be my math teacher in LN, because I was also there for it was both JEE and NEET, and in ninth grade we had math. So he he always used to motivate me, tell me to explore myself and etc. And then COVID happened, right? And in COVID, I got this time, like I found a silver lining in that experience. I was able to come out of, because now I'm always going to school, I don't have time, I'm coming back, going to coaching center. I was very one directional, I would say. But COVID gave me a chance to explore. I explored more universities, and I got to know at Coursera, and then I saw the lectures there online from different universities. And I just, a person very close to me told, or it was like a thing, like intuitive thing that came into me, that the effort I'm to, like, investing in getting into a uni in India, like for NEET, if I invest the same amount of effort to get into a uni abroad, I would practically get into a very good education system, because I prefer the UK medicine, because I feel like it's very holistic, and I don't regret it, because after coming here I did realize it is quite holistic than the ones I have known of, and the care system is quite different. So coming back to me in the past, where I was deciding all that, I realized, let me go and try, and that's when I knew about IB, International Baccalaureate. That was the time I got to know about it, and I was like, this course will open my pathways to different countries, because A levels is good enough, but IB, I could literally go anywhere in the world and they would still accept me because of my grades. So I convinced my mom first. My mom helped me convince my dad, and then I came to Hyderabad, where I did my IB. Good time. Not, no, probably not the best, but then good time. Yes, it was like I did learn a lot. Had very good mentors. They all helped me kind of realize my potential. Honestly, kept on motivating me, helping me throughout the lows in high school. So I feel like I owe them a huge favor for this. And after that, after a bit more research, I was like, it's time to take the leap, because I could have still gave the NEET and get into a uni in India. But I was like, I've done so much now. It would only make sense to take the leap of faith and come here and try it out. And I don't regret it. I am pretty happy that I did that. I'm quite happy of the journey that has shaped me into coming into the UK and this version of myself. So I'm pretty grateful for that again, and grateful to all the people I've met across the way.
Yeah, I love the shout outs. I love sort of the tone of this episode is becoming very grateful. I've not had many episodes that are like few minutes in, we have these shout outs and we have these 5 people we're grateful to. So I really like that. This episode will go to all of these people after it's published for sure. I have a bunch of questions actually, but I think the very first thing I'll start with is asking you to expand on why you think studying medicine in the UK is more holistic than studying medicine back in India.
Right. We're kind of diving into a bit of controversial area now, but since it's a podcast for the high schoolers, I'll just put out my opinion out there. I felt in India it was a monotonous way, like a lot of book learning. Of course, you do have practicals, you do a lot of stuff, but the biggest factor of me was the job satisfaction you get after you do. Like, you are working so hard for 5 years in India. Like my uncle is an internal medicine doctor. He graduated from a uni in India, and I've seen him work so hard for 5 years. Then did, like, after you work, you have to do 2 years, then do need PG again, then get into another like few years of the training kind of, and then you finally become a proper consultant, which journey I felt was, I mean, it was long, but then after you, but then when you do need UG and get into med school after 5 years, the amount you're earning is not, it doesn't balance with how much you have worked. And I felt it was kind of not rewarding. And again, finding jobs also sometimes might be a big thing, though it's not a big issue for doctors these days. But then again, the amount of effort, same thing, the amount of, I wanted it to be a balance. The amount of effort I'm putting in, I wanted to have higher yield from that, rather than putting in so much effort and getting a lower yield. So in UK, it's like you have this pathway, you do medicine, then you are a foundation year doctor, right? After you graduate, you have to give a UK MLA, then you become a foundation. Now it's a UK MLA. Hopefully they won't change it, but yeah, my batch have to sit this UK MLA licensing assessment, and then you become a foundation year doctor, one doctor. Then you become a foundation year 2 doctor. After that, you can apply for a specialty training, for example, cardiothoracic surgery, neurosurgery, and then get into residency, which is like 4, 5, 6 years, depending on which specialty you choose, right? Another beautiful thing about it is you can take a gap year before going into specialty. People call it foundation year 3 or foundation year 4, but you cannot take a lot of gap years. Like mostly people take foundation year 3 and then go into specialty, or a lot of people directly after FY2 go into specialty. So it's up to you to decide. I like this autonomy, and even though we are like I'm done with medicine here, and uh get my first FY1 doctor, that phase I enter. If I enter that phase, I will still be earning more than I probably would have been earning in India, even though it's not the best money I would get in terms of being in the UK, because junior doctors strikes, all this have been going on, but it's still a decent and good amount, which is better than I would have earned after I graduated from a med school in India. So that was like my way of the smart goals, right? Achievable. So for me, it was like my measure of the reward I'll be getting, right, from like from the whole experience, of getting a medical degree, which is intense, which is crucifying at times, but that's the reason. So you need something to motivate you. Sometimes it can be monetary, it can be self-fulfillment. For me, self-fulfillment is important, but again, I wanted to be rewarded for the work I did, right? So for me, I was like, I would gain more here. So I was like, UK, and holistically we have this approach of multidisciplinary teams. I think it's there back there in India also, but mostly you just go to doctors, they give you medicines, you come back, right? Here we have like this classes where we learn about MDTs, of course, and we call it, like, we also have CSFC, which is Clinical Skills Foundation course, which where you get into from year 1 itself. They teach you the different aspects of a patient. Like, you want to treat the patient, not the disease. That's how we talk about. You need to treat the person. That's why we take mental health a lot into consideration, referring to psychologists whenever needed, behavioral therapy whenever needed, because diseases have a lot of impact on a person's mental health as well. So everything is taken into consideration here, which I'm very grateful. Patients have autonomy about some of their aspects, like most of their treatments. Patients have autonomy. We just list them out, whichever, and we tell them this has the highest, like the highest benefit for you, this treatment, and we put everything out to them, and it's up to the patient. I like that concept because some people have some different values, different way of thinking, and though we as doctors we try our best to put forward the best treatment for the patient, we do give the patient their autonomy.
I love asking this specifically to medical students because you have so much studying, you have a long journey ahead of you, a lot of late nights or sleepless nights. I met a lot of people in San Francisco who began pursuing medicine and then realized that this is too much work for them. They switched into something like biotech or biomedical, graduated in 4 or 5 years, and then they're working in biotech in SF. So it's definitely like an easier option for anyone who's sort of dropping out of the medical sphere and doesn't want to be a doctor. But personally for you, why specifically medicine? Like, even if you're interested in biology, chemistry, there are a bunch of different routes. What attracts you so much of like becoming a doctor?
Helping people. Very big answer. I mean, a bit cheesy as well for some people, but then I don't know. For me, I wanted to do something. I told you, right? Throughout the episode, I've been telling self-fulfillment is a big thing for me. Rewarding, getting, feeling that inside you that, okay, I've done something, is a big thing for me. So I feel medicine was a job that would lead me to help people through my work. Means like if I'm a engineer, I'll be working, maybe an automobile engineer, I'll be working with cars, but then in a way they are helping people as well to get from one place to the other, right? Developing new cars, etc. But they would also go for other stuff like charity, do good, etc., etc. I felt like the beauty of being in this profession is your work is that.
Work is charity.
Yeah, work, like you're working to help people get out of illness so that they can get back to their work. For example, you treated an automobile engineer. For example, you treated a businessman, right? So in a way, you're having impact on a lot of other spheres of life, other professions of life, by the common area of health, where you are helping an individual gain the health they require to work efficiently in their work, kind of. So for me, I feel like that's very rewarding. It's like, okay, I'm helping someone achieve their dreams. I'm
Mm,
helping someone not to stay sick, so that not just disease wise, mentally, emotionally. Like we have psychotherapists, we have psychiatrists who do MBBS and then study psychology. So a whole range of teams. My
mm.
personal tutor is a psychiatrist, like mental health advocate. He is so amazing job. I feel it's a pretty good one. And I don't know. I just felt like this profession was the one for me, where I would be impacting to a greater deal, because you don't have to be known sometimes to have an impact in the world. Sometimes it's I feel like doctors, they're not known like the big people out there, like the big businessmen. They're not known enough, but doctors have an important role in the society, I feel, where they treat people, help people. And I don't mind being in the shadows as long as I feel like I am doing something out there, for people and helping them. And I really like this idea around it. So yeah, that's why I chose being a doctor as my career goal.
I think without even saying the term, you touched on a very important concept about sort of fulfillment of work, which is, I think, like ripple effects. And so the work you do affecting someone else, which then affects someone else, and it sort of ripples through. That's what I love about content, which is if a great book reaches one reader and they recommend it to 10 more, it has a ripple effect of like reaching that third person who you otherwise wouldn't have reached. What you're saying as a doctor is you're helping someone, you're enabling someone else to like do their work well so that they can impact whoever they have to impact, customers or whoever. I think that's a very solid reason to be doing what you're doing, to be like getting out of bed in the morning, even when you've slept like 4 hours in the night. But I could see like the passion coming through. I love talking to people about what they love, about what they do. And it certainly seems like medicine is that for you. Um, I rewind a little bit, and something you mentioned quite early on in the episode, but which I want to like take and expand a bit further here. I'm sure this is a whole story, but you mentioned convincing your parents to go abroad. And I'm
Correct.
assuming many listeners of this episode might be in a similar situation. Maybe they're the only girl in the family, they're the only boy in the family, and the parents are sort of hesitant to send them abroad. This could be Indians, this could be other countries as well. They want them to study domestically. What was like your journey and what was your pitch to your parents to let you like go halfway around the world and put their daughter in sort of what I'm assuming they found like a new and unknown and foreign place?
All right. You're in for a roller coaster for this one then. So all you have to do, like whoever is listening to this, is first you need to convince yourself,
Mm,
right? You have to convince yourself, okay, I can go abroad and I can stay alone on my own without anyone, because I have literally no one in UK, no family, no friends. All
mm,
the friends I've made is after I came to university. So
mm,
I had to convince myself, will I be able to live alone? Once I was pretty sure after my boarding experience or living alone that, okay, yeah, I think I can do this, I realized now it's time to pitch it to my parents. This was my original pitch as well. I was like, send me to Hyderabad, see how I do. If you feel like I'm ready for it, go ahead. Then why not take the leap and go to the UK? So that was one stepping stone for me, I felt. So yeah, convince yourself first. Then once you are ready, show it to your parents that, okay, I am ready to go abroad. Because once they see this effect in you, okay, how much my child has changed or how much passionate he or she is about this, they want you to be happy. Your parents always want you to be happy, no matter if it at the moment it feels like maybe, oh no, they are being too strict. They always want you to be
yeah.
happy. That's not questionable, honestly, for me at least, not questionable. They will do what's the best for you. All you have to do is show them and prove it to them that you are up for the job, because your parents don't want you to be stranded in a foreign country and do nothing about it. They will always be tense. Oh my god, my son or daughter is there. How is she eating? Is she eating well? Even now my parents are always worried if I'm eating well, what am I doing? So it's gonna be there. But all you have to do is convince yourself and then convince your parents. That's make the job way easier, and hopefully everything works out in your favor.
Mm. Yeah, I love the part about like convincing yourself first. Am I ready to do this? Some people might feel they're not. Maybe that's an opportunity to whatever, do solo travel, take a gap year, take time off, discuss with others. In some cases, genuinely, I've had people on the podcast say that I was not ready to go abroad. And I'm happy that I chose to be in India for undergrad and maybe masters, I'll go abroad. That's perfectly reasonable. I also love the point of parents showing parents that you're ready, like not telling them you're ready, but showing them. And so in my case, like 6 months before, not even 6 months, like a year before Minerva, I changed my behavior a lot. I used to be like forgetful. I ensured that I wasn't as forgetful. I used to always be late. I tried to be more punctual. I did a bunch of solo trips through school. And so whatever you can do to like show them that you're changing as a person, you're becoming responsible, you can like handle yourself. Boarding is a great option. If that's not an option, at least like doing solo trips through school or through whatever other means is an awesome way to show them that like you are ready to go to this new country and live there independently. Ultimately, the last thing I'll say, maybe this slightly conflicts with what you're saying, but it's something I've come to believe, is that you ultimately have to like just jump into the deep end of the pool. You're never going to be fully ready, especially as if you've never been to the UK or the US and you're going there and then 2 or 3 weeks, that first 2 3 weeks, and how that goes, showing them that like it's going well, it's different and it's difficult, but I'm handling it, I'm managing, I'm figuring things out. That is like the final like nail in the coffin where your parents are like, okay, she will manage or he will manage. For me, it was that first like month in San Francisco, and then they were like at ease. Like they were like, okay, he knows what he's doing somewhat, he's figuring things out. But I really enjoyed that section. What I want to dive into a little bit with you, and we can do this at a high level. I'm sure there's like a whole podcast in this particular question as well. But from a very high level, what were the different components of your application to the UK, specifically for your medical course? Like, what were the different steps?
So if I could go into the whole process, but just to stay to the point and very concise, so it is easier for everyone, whoever is listening to it. Grades are very important in the UK. Very, very important. You get a conditional offer. If you fail even a point, your offer is gonna go away until you do something, pull something out of your bag, or be like, oh wow, I did this, I did that, or whatever. But most of the cases, grades are always very important. Don't let your academics go down. Like, of course, have a balance in your high school, but this is the time where you are shaping your future. So I would highly suggest that the more you enjoy, the more you also put in work, so that it doesn't dampen or lower your grades. Maintain your grades for the university that you want to go into. The first advice. Second advice, do something medical related. Job shadowing, get to know about the field a bit more. Get shadow doctors if you find. I was fortunate enough to have an uncle who I could shadow. If you don't have an uncle or anyone, go around, ask the hospitals, ask the nursing clinics. Like, clinics are always a good option. If you, for example, you probably have a doctor, right, who you go to for a very long time. Ask the doctor if it's possible for you to shadow him or shadow her for like a week or so. Most of them would be happy to help, passionate people or kids who are interested in this field. So express your interest, get in touch, do job shadowing, because that will allow you to test the waters before you actually dive into the water, or that's like a preliminary test. See how they're working. Does it suit you? Would you be up for it? Thirdly, have some extracurriculars as well, because your personal statement is also after grades very important. Because if you get the desired grades and someone else also got the desired grades, what is going to differentiate you, right? So after that comes the personal statement, which for that you need something impressive. Job shadowing, you can always put it, oh yeah, I shadowed doctors, I've learned this, these are some important cases I learned about. Or if you had a previous life experience in a hospital, I put a lot of my hospital experiences because they were kind of unique to me, and it really helped kind of make it stand out to the college. So you could do that.
I think overall very comprehensive. You touched on a bunch of bases there. Plus, you also shared some like tips and do's and don'ts. So you answered like 2 questions in one. After like the university, in your case, U Buckingham, vetted like each of these different aspects, was the final stage for you an interview by any chance?
Yes, there was an interview because in UK, a lot of the time after you get like your offer, right? Um, Most unis will in for medicine. I don't know. I'm not really sure about the other subjects, but medicines, all universities have interviews. The formats are a bit different. Oxford, Cambridge, and like I'm not sure about other, but Oxford and Cambridge do a traditional interview. I feel like they ask. I don't remember the name of the format, but
Mm.
most of the unis do something called multiple mini interviews, which my uni did as well. So in MMIs, you have like different stations you go through, and according to the station, you have a bunch of questions that you need to answer. It might be related to medicine, might not be related to medicine, might be implicated. There is a so it's like a different area. I could go into whole detail about all the stations, but then it would be a big deal. But then it's mostly the essence of it is to see if you are well suited to be a doctor, to
Mm.
test your communication skills. And this is where personal statement helps you as well, right? That okay, I have done this, and there is a station for, sometimes there's a station dedicated to personal statement where you were
Mm.
asked stuff about yourself. Then
Mm.
there's a station stay so not I'm so sorry, there is a station for a situational judgment, or maybe something like on moral values as a doctor, like professionalism, etc. So it all aligns with how a doctor should be. It lines with if I'm talking in terms of UK, it lines with the GMC, which is the General Medical Council. So there's a book called the General Medical Council. Like there's a book on that where all the jobs of like how a doctor should be, everything is outlined perfectly. So anyone who is willing for UK, want to come here to study medicine, please go through that book before your interview if you have any. It will help you. And of course, there are plenty of websites where they will help you what multiple mini stations are, what the interviews are like. So yeah.
I'm sure anyone who's interested can go further, dive deep. There's enough resources in terms of preparation. But I want to actually, I'm curious to ask you, because there's different philosophies on this, but how prepared should you be for the interview? Like going too prepared, I think, is also a problem, and going way less prepared is also a problem. But like, what's that balance?
Um, uh, Certainly be prepared, but be flexible, I feel.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that's the right word. Don't just get bogged down by whatever you have studied, whatever you have prepared for, because there will be a station which will just completely blow your mind out.
Yeah.
It'll be like, oh wait, I didn't expect this question. I didn't. So best keep your calm, right? Take the question as it is, answer to the point.
Yeah.
Then, if you have more time, go a bit deeper. But then, as long as you break down the question, address each aspect of the question, you should be good. I
Mm.
feel, because that's what I did for my interview. Because there will be some questions, of course, you would never have seen in your life, and it
Mm.
just comes in. So, in those situations, I feel be prepared, because being underprepared will not make you ready for what's coming,
Yeah.
because all the questions will seem new to you. So that's like a problem. Being too prepared will have you feel like, oh, I know so much, but then this questions comes in and you are like all over the place. So
Mm.
that's why just having that balance is good, and going to the interview with an open mind is perfect, because
Mm.
you can never know what comes into play, right? So it's always perfect to be flexible and at the same time prepared.
That's a good sweet spot to find. It's not a very easy sweet spot to find, but it's a learning process. I'm sure, like, especially dedicated students listening will always lean towards the more prepared side, especially those like want to pursue like this difficult path of medicine. The only thing where you have to be very wary about extra preparation is that when you find a question which is like completely new, something you're unprepared for, and this is something I've seen in myself, is when you prepare way too much, you sort of say 100 different things, everything except for the actual question. Like, what does that question asking?
Right.
So, especially when it's a very new question, I think the thing is just to keep it simple, take 5 seconds, clear your thoughts, and then think through the question out loud. Like, just stay to the point, answer what is being asked, also valuable for like exams, high school and university. Answer what's being asked, think it through, like at least talk through your thought process. Even if it's not the perfect answer, they know sort of where you're approaching the answer from. And this could be a medical or a non-medical question, to be honest. For this first section of the episode, where we also dive deep on the applications, the question I want to wrap up with here is, if you made any mistakes during the entire application process, do you mind sharing those with us? And how can like high schoolers do a better job than you did in any way in terms of those mistakes you made?
Yeah, so for me, I feel the weakest part were how my personal statement was phrased. I feel I could have made it more professional, but thankfully, towards the end of it, I did seek out help from various people to help me out with it to get to a good personal statement, and that's when I came into Buckingham. So yeah, I had offers from a few universities before I applied. Never thought of applying to Buckingham. So I applied to different sorts of unis. I did get into a very good one, not mentioning the name, but yeah, I did get into a very good one. And then, but I didn't go there because of the course, because I just realized myself, no, I want to do medicine. I'm not taking the pre-med route, because then it would be the same as India, the long journey, etc., etc. I didn't want to go back, because the reason I'm going outside is to shorten my time and get more out of it. So I felt like I'll go to Buckingham. It has an accelerated course. That's when I actually worked with my personal statement a bit more and perfected it so that it would stand out and I would get into the uni. Hence, my tips, the mistakes I made was not thoroughly researching the universities. I just stayed with those top of the ranking list universities, which I felt was a mistake, because yeah, top of the ranking list, amazing. You'll get the, okay, yeah, I'm in the top of the ranking list uni. It will feel great, but then at the long term, 10 years down the lane, I mean, you will be working, and the way you work, the well you work, will differentiate between you and the other candidates. So it's not always the uni's name; it's how you have learned, what you have done, and how good you are, not how good the university is. So it's about you. So I felt like researching very important. I made the mistake. Please don't do that. Research all the universities thoroughly. See who is best for you. Have a good personal statement, so that perfect it. Don't be like me. Don't just do it and be like, oh God, okay, it's perfect now. I just get as many reviews as possible. I just got 2 in the beginning. It wasn't good enough. I got a lot more towards the end, and I felt like my personal statement turned out to be way better than. So get as many reviews as you can. And then finally, the last thing I would say is the grades, which I already mentioned before. I didn't really have a problem with it, because I did end up getting the grades I wanted. So yep, that's all from my end. The 3 mistakes I kind of made. So the 2 mistakes I kind of made, and how I recovered from that. Still recovering from that.
Research in university has been a common trend across many of the episodes I've done so far. Most people's biggest regret is that they didn't research enough into different universities. Some people get lucky, and like in my case, I got very lucky with Minerva. Like my dad is the one who actually told it to me. I did a bit of research and then ended up just going there. If I had not taken that extra step myself, God knows I would have been in a very different university today and maybe less happy. So please go out of the way to go beyond the top 20 names, the big names. It's beyond just the name. You're going to be spending 4 valuable years of your life there. And so overall, you should be happy. You should be surrounded by people who are inspiring. You should be in a city that you enjoy, or a town that you enjoy spending time in. There's like 100 different factors coming in beyond just the ranking of a university. There's not a huge difference between the university that's ranked number 1 versus like 15 versus number 7. I feel like the quality of education is very much similar when it comes to those like minute differences. There are other things that are hugely important, which is like, do I want to study in a big city versus a town? Do I want to live in the snow versus the sun? In your case, do I want to do pre-med versus do I want to do like medicine? That becomes a big difference. I know what that other university was, by the way. So that was a big choice. I think this is a perfect segue to fast forward a little bit and I want to dive a little deeper into some specifics of U Buckingham and your experience there. So the first high level question I'll ask you, based on bridging off of what we were just talking about, is you chose U Buckingham over another great university, unnamed, which is like among the top in the UK, also in central London. What attracted you like so specifically? What were pull factors to U Buckingham apart from, as you mentioned, being able to do medicine?
The accelerated course, 4.5 years, everything I could have asked for.
Yeah.
Now the UK is working on a 4 year course. I don't know when it's gonna come up, but then that would be a great choice for students who want their degree early and get into the workforce as soon as possible, to actually start working. So yeah, 4.5 years, biggest takeaway. Buckingham, I mean, it's a small town, but so I mean, it's like very very much of that cozy town life aesthetic. I feel it's more like you have a good community. There are people, all nice people around. It's an expensive town, by the way, a very expensive town. Everything is very expensive. Sometimes you do find cheaper stuff in London. Buckingham is way expensive. so apart from that, I just felt where the town was situated in the city location. I mean, how well located it is. Just a few hours, like 1.5 hour from London, an hour from Oxford. One bus takes you to Oxford in 1 hour. If you have a car, you can probably just go in like 30-40 minutes. Then it's close to MK, Milton Keynes, which is like a very major city as well, like London, very good city, and a lot of things to do there, which is just like a 40 minutes ride from the bus station here. There is Cambridge, which is 3 hours away if you want to go, and it's just by bus. You don't have to take the train to Cambridge. So it's an amazingly, like, for me, perfectly located. Because then I told in the beginning, I mentioned I'm more of a traveler, right? I love traveling, I love exploring around. So for me, being located here, I could go to Oxford. I did go to Cambridge. I loved Cambridge. I keep on going to MK for my placements, right, in the hospital, because we have placements from now. Warwick we have been because of placements. So I love how well situated this place. One of the pull factors, again, the length of the degree and how well situated it is. And I saw the alumni and stuff, right, how many graduates, and it had a good student satisfaction point. And I was like, oh, okay, students are actually satisfied. And I'm like, okay, these three were like, you know what, let's go here. And I mean, I really wanted to do medicine at that point, and really didn't want to go into pre-med. So this was my only option then. And I was like, I don't want to take a gap year at that point and reapply to all the medical universities again. So I was like, let's go ahead, take the leap.
Student satisfaction is very important. For me, even beyond the number, I think the easiest way to gauge is like go speak to 10 different students pursuing the major you want to pursue at that university. It's not hard to find those people. I don't think that's a wild excuse. Like go on LinkedIn, somehow friends of friends, and like you will find at least one or two. So important to be speaking to current students before you make a decision to commit to that university. Understand whether they're like genuinely enjoying it. What are pros and cons of that university? Every university has a bright side and a slightly darker side. Like I think that's true. What I've come to realize in the podcast that's come true of is that that's true of almost all the institutions. What I want to do for a moment is take a deeper dive into your course specifically. Something interesting you were mentioning to me, in fact, before we started recording, was how it's very practical. And so from year one, you're getting into sort of working with the hospitals and not just like in the textbooks. And so say a little more about the practical aspect of your course.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, so we have something known as the Clinical Skills Foundation course, like along with anatomy, physiology, or different systems that we study. We have CSFC throughout the years. Like, the first 2 years we have CSFC, where basically it's like once a week we rotate around university, a GP practice, and a hospital. So the first time is mostly at university, where they help you understand history taking, help you do history taking. They bring in actors who are patients, like act as patients, and then you can go and take their history, and then they teach you the basics about it. Then as you progress through the term, you learn the diseases, you learn the concepts, and it's all gets integrated into CSFC, where they bring in patients with actors with the diseases, and you learn from them. So that's like term 1 in the beginning. Towards the end, you start going to hospitals. So for example, you are studying, let me talk about term 3. That for I have a unit on cardiovascular unit on the heart now. So now at university we are doing heart history taking, heart murmurs, heart sounds, everything related to that. When we go to the GP practice, we meet actual patients with heart issues and heart problems to consolidate. Then the next week we go to hospitals, right? GP practice is like more small and confined. It's like primary healthcare. Then we go to hospitals, like more secondary healthcare. MK hospital is very much secondary healthcare. So there you meet more patients. Like for example, heart condition, then you meet different patients. So what they do is the doctors there, right? So like who are helping us learn. So for example, you're divided into groups. So one doctor is with like 3 students, and then they go around and they select the patients. The doctors select the patients for you. Then and of course they take their consent and everything, and then you go talk to the patient, learn about how they came here, when did it start, like the whole process. Then you also examine the patient, which was so interesting for me. Because you actually are seeing that, placing your stethoscope around and actually doing stuff with this, stethoscope, which was interesting, like cardio. But in term 2, we had MSK, which is orthopedics. So we talked about the bones and, all those orthopedic trauma, surgery, etc. So that's how it goes. And once your 2 years are done with CSFC, your 3rd and 4th year are completely hospital. So you're just in hospital. Your whole education is done in hospital in 3rd and 4th year here. Even your exams, everything, probably it's in the I'm not really sure about how the exams are yet, because I'm not there yet. But then what I've heard from seniors is that everything gets done in the hospitals. You get placed into hospital or GP surgeries weekly. You just rotate, but 3rd and 4th completely clinical. Plus you have to do electives as well, like you have to go around, do electives, etc. Research also, some SSC component people do. So it's very much practical. 3rd and 4th, first 2 clinical years, they introduce the clinical stuff, but at the same time consolidate your learning, diseases, everything, or pathophysiology, etc., followed by the clinical last 2.5 years, where you do everything clinical, then sit the exam, and you are prepared to enter the workforce, which I felt is very good for a uni.
Yeah, I mean,
at least resonated with me.
Yeah, for sure. Couple of things. I could see the holistic aspect coming through. I love the balance between theory and practicals, because I always believe that what you learn in the classroom gets digested better when you go and work. And then when you go and work, you go back to the classroom with a better awareness of like what are your knowledge gaps. So I feel like there's a good like interdisciplinary flow of information in that sense. Is your course more practical compared to other UK universities in general, or are all of them like sort of very practical?
Yeah, like all UK universities have the clinical. Like last 2-3 years, I feel all the unis have clinical components. Like that's what I loved about the UK. Like they really put work into ensuring that you're actually learning. But the difference is, we start from first year, they start from third year.
Okay.
We get an early exposure. So that's like a plus point in this uni. So because at the end in UK the course is actually unified, in the sense it's the same across all med school. The course is the same across all med school. All the students are going to write UKMLA, no matter which university you are from. You are from the high university, you are from a less ranking university, you are learning the same thing. It's just the teaching style is different a bit, but you are getting the same thing. You are writing the same exam, UKMLA, the licensing exam, which is very good for people who couldn't go to the high university. Some people can't go for financial reasons, right? International students, it's very expensive for them. Some of the high top universities, you can't go there. And if you're in a low ranking university, you still have a way to do UKMLA and still be a very good doctor. And this is a very good thing, the fact that we are learning the same thing across all universities.
Mm. Yeah, that's very nice. And this already sounds hectic as a schedule in and of itself. Sort of the intense studying you're doing, plus spending all the time in hospitals. What I want to come to now is what you do beyond all of this. So academics are one portion of your university life, but what I've noticed from sort of what we've been talking about is you spend a lot of time in a lot of different activities, and that's events, that's conferences, meeting professionals, a bunch of different things. And so, putting the academics aside, like sort of moving on from that section, tell us about everything else you do at university except for studying. Like, what does professional and career growth look like for you?
Yeah, right. I'm a part of a bunch of societies. I'm executives for most of them. So I'm the events coordinator for Oncology Society. My friend founded Pediatrics Society, and I am on board as the vice president. And I myself founded the Pulmonology and Thoracic Surgery Society, and I'm co-president with another friend, not friend, I mean a senior. She's in third year, so both of us. So, and another friend of mine who is now the social secretary for this society. So yeah, we have the Pulmonology and Thoracic Surgery Society. I'm executive here, and there's this society Scalpel, but there I'm just as a member, because already I'm a part of three societies. I didn't want to, force myself to take more than I can, have too much on my plate. So Scalpel is a surgery society, and through this society, I was able to go to conferences. So the thing I love about society is how they have access to the conferences, how we can attend them. I went to Portsmouth recently for a colorectal surgery conference. Amazing experience. Met so many professionals, like proper surgeons, like who have done their training, are well established, and they're working with Da Vinci, which is the robot, robotic surgery. So fascinating robot. We got to try out the robots ourselves as well, like not on people, of course, the dummies we have, like small models. So it was very interesting, I felt. So going to events, conferences keep me up, but then I believe in having a balance as well. I do want to spend time with friends, have a community, talk to them, go out with them, hang out with them. So going to Oxford with them once a week, or like once in a blue moon, going to Silverstone. I'm a F1 enthusiast, by the way, if any one of you are Formula One. So I went to Silverstone with my friend. We went to the Formula One museum, which was amazing experience. So I try to keep my balance.
I think you've covered like basically what university students do beyond the academics. Like you've hit a lot of different points there. The message is also, according to me, very loud and clear. But in case we are breaking the mental barrier or the misconception which someone listening to this podcast has, that university and studying medicine is about studying all the time and being buried in your textbooks, I want to like very bluntly ask you the question, sort of, Fahmida, what's wrong with spending all your time at university as a medical student in the textbook? Is it wrong?
If you do that, you certainly are a very dedicated individual. You really know what you're doing, but practically you will get burned out at some point, because as humans, you do need some connection with the outside world as well. So having a balance, finding out what you love apart from academics, exploring yourself a bit more, getting to know yourself better, is all part of you learning as well. So a growth curve is not just with academics, it's with you as a whole of a person. So exploring all aspects of yourself is what university will teach you. So it's to get the best out of this experience. Academics is important. Of course, you need to stay in the university to discover yourself. Of course, do your academics, but also don't get burned out. Explore yourself, explore new people, explore the city. You were blessed enough, like we are all blessed enough to come into a different city than we were typically used to. Explore that city, get to know more about it. So I feel like having a balance is certainly a very important thing in university.
For sure. I love those two words of discover yourself. I think at university, you learn so much more than just like sort of the content or the academics and the major specific knowledge. I think in my case, I learned how to deal with people, like how to deal with all types of people I learned about myself, like truly discovering yourself. And as you said, absolutely enjoy the city you're in, especially if you have the privilege to be studying outside of your home city or outside of your home country. Make it your second home. Like, absolutely immerse yourself in a new culture, in a new environment. That is its own set of learnings, which you won't get sitting in your room, like with a textbook in hand. That's a different set of learnings. This might be a difficult question, but I think it's a very crucial question, which unfortunately I've only started talking about on the podcast over the last few episodes. And now each episode, I'm trying to sort of get this element in, which is personal growth and like self growth at university. I'm sure there is so much you learned about yourself over the last few months. I'm sure there are certain like fears or challenges you overcame on a personal level. Like, I'm sure you're like a new Fahmida than the Fahmida who like entered the UK on day one. And so, say more about that specifically. Like, how have you seen yourself change as a person over the last just 2 terms at university?
I mean, my change is a bit visible. So I got the spiritual connection. Like, I always had that, but then I don't know, coming here, meeting people, I just realized, and meeting people with similar mindsets also helped me realize I wasn't a hijabi before. After coming to UK, I started wearing the hijab. That's like a visual change you could see in me. Apart from this, in terms of other than the spiritual aspect of myself, I term one was pretty good. I My attendance was solid as well, but in term two, my attendance went a bit down in terms of the group works I was going to, and I was pretty sad by it. I was disappointed in myself that I couldn't keep up with it because I was studying, and it led me to see that's the thing. But if you study, have burnout, wake up late next morning, you miss the group work. Late means no non-engagement in our university. So I'm pretty sad about that. And because of that, of course, the concerns team reach out to you saying, oh, you had some attendance issues. Is everything okay? This is not professional, you have to read or go through that whole professionalism thing, because as doctors, professionalism is a big factor in your life, which I felt quite bad in term 2. Now that term 3 has started, I haven't missed any classes, groupers, but I was late to one, and sadly, since I was late, I got non-engagement there. And I think last week also I did get, but these were the only 2 times, and that was because I was sick. So it wasn't because of overworking this time. This was I had an eye infection one day, woke up late. I thought I would give the sickness form, and but then I was like, never mind, let me just go. And then we have a student support team, which is a good thing about all universities. They should have that. They reached out to me saying that, oh, all right, are you okay? Because of course, if you have good grades as well, like my exam grades were pretty good, so they're more concerned, like, okay, they don't want you to lower your grades because they've been going pretty good so far. So I did they reached out to me, and then they told me about, like, because no matter how good your grades are, professionalism is important. It's like you need to be disciplined. You need to, because as doctors, you need to be very disciplined in future. So that's why they reached out asking me if I have any barriers to my engagement, if I'm having any problems. My personal tutor is amazing. I've already talked about all my issues with him, but the student support reaching out to me. Then I told them the last time I was absent was because of this reason and this. And they gave me a very good advice. They told me that submit a sickness form if you're unwell. And later, if you do go to the group work, come to us, we'll archive your group sickness form. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I get in touch with student support before? Because a lot of students say that, oh, it's not really helpful and stuff, but they did give me a pretty good advice. And then I did tell her I didn't go into detail. It's hard for me to be vulnerable with people or tell them everything about me. It's like a me thing, which I'm still working on. I think I don't want to change it because I like the way it is right now. I don't want to tell everything about me to everyone now. So I did mention her that, which makes it hard for me to seek help, because for me to seek help, I need to tell them what's wrong, and I don't want to do that. So that's a thing. in my personal growth line, which I'm still working on, but I feel it's much better than how it was before. So now when I didn't open up to her yet, but I told her that, okay, these were the barriers. And she was like, I'm so glad. It was all email conversation, by the way. And then she replied back saying that I'm so glad you had a talk with your personal tutor and they helped you a lot. But if anytime you need any help, I'm more than happy to hear, and I'm more than happy to meet you, which is a very good. I don't know. It made me feel really good. It was like, okay, fine. I have support in some form. So universities having support groups is amazing. It helps you grow as an individual a lot. Makes you address the lows you have. Makes you address the difficult situations you face. And the thing is, these people are professionals, so they will never breach your confidentiality and go around, because with friends there can always be a breach of confidentiality. You never know who might go around telling what. You never know that, because no matter, it's just human nature, right? You go and sometimes you just falter. It's not like a thing. So it's better to always talk to a professional. Firstly, your confidentiality is maintained, and they will give you honest feedback on you. So that will help you. So I felt I become more I've learned more about me. In personally, I have grown spiritually. I have grown in terms of my professionalism. I have grown in terms of how I view things in life and the people around me. So, yep, the major three things that I've learned is that learning myself, and I'm quite happy. And I'm completely honest. I'm not 100% there in everything, but I am quite sure, slowly but surely, I'm getting somewhere.
You're on like the right path at least, and that's
Yes.
important to know.
Yeah.
I think that there's a growth curve which everyone has at university. Like everyone I've met so far has overworked and gotten burnt out, and then realized the value of like self care and sort of this work life balance. Most people I meet have been alone and like sort of struggling with something, and then realized that you have to ask and reach out for help, because no one is most of the times in university it's you who reaches out. It's not like there's people to always be checking in. That's what makes it different from home, where family is always there to be checking in. Number three is of course with friends. We all sort of grow and learn. We make friends. We get closer to some people. We get disconnected from some people. We have mini fights. That's its own like growth and learning curve in itself. It's important to have such experiences, because sometimes learning a lesson very early on at university at very low stakes, like where making a mistake in your case is like getting a few grades less, or maybe doing less well on an exam, getting non-engagement, it is so much better to learn the lesson early than when you're a doctor and you actually make a mistake with a patient because of XYZ reason. Speaking about friendships, and you mentioned that you learned some valuable lessons in middle and high school, which have then translated it into university. A lot of people at university are thrown into a completely different set of people. Like I know so many friends who went to university and knew not a single person. Like that was my case at Minerva. So everything is from scratch. Like all those old friendships, all of them are all over the world. You have to completely start from scratch. And the difficult part is it's not all like Indians. So there's often not a similarity with culture and language and religion, possibly also like interests and passions. So for you, especially being in an international environment like Buckingham and like the UK, how do you approach like friendships and making new friends, especially people of different cultures, different backgrounds?
Yeah. I was very reserved in the first term. I felt like I didn't socialize much because I told you I learned some lessons in high school I don't want to repeat, and just go on and be friends with everyone and be too bubbly and social. It's just a me thing. I feel it's not like it works a lot for some people. For me, it didn't work quite well in some aspects of my life, so I didn't repeat it. I kept to myself, but I didn't distance myself from people. I did still talk to them. Someone came up to me, I would talk to them as well. Hi, hello, I'm from here, blah, and all this. How the conversation goes, right? So yeah, I did made acquaintances. I
Yeah.
made a lot of acquaintances in first term. Not a lot of friends, I would say, but yeah, a lot of acquaintances, so that I could still talk to them later on. Then slowly but surely, towards end of term one, I did form people I could call friends. Like to some greater, we shared similar interests, etc. Maybe culture wasn't a big deal for me because I am from a place which is very culturally diverse. because when I was in Assam or in DPS, I had a lot of tribals studying in my school who are amazing. My best friend is one of them. Then I have had a lot of different people from different parts of India, and you know how culturally diverse India is itself. So I met all these people. Then I came to Hyderabad, completely different than Assam, all Telugu people, mostly Telugu people there. So, I worked out with them. And then after I came here, it wasn't a big deal in terms of culture as long as we had, something to talk about, something to form a bond with. And for example, I joined different communities like ISOC, Islamic Society, where I met a lot of different people, Pakistan, Canada, etc. So I formed really good bonds with them, some from Saudi Arabia. So it was really nice meeting them. And then I have different friend groups now, which is interesting because I never was a part of different friend groups. But the fact that all my friend groups work so well together is really good. Like even they know each other. So I have a friend groups are just Indians, but like I have just Indian people. But then the twist is they're Indian, but they're not from India. They're from Dubai. Which is interesting, very interesting. So mostly here, people who are Indians are either from Dubai or they're from Saudi or they're from another part of the world. It's like just a few of us who are directly from India. So yeah, that was new to me, and I was like, okay, but then again, it's the same values again, same culture wherever they are. So it was fun. So I felt like term one reserved, term two kind of became more social, started talking, hanging out a bit more. Term through trying to keep a balance. Term through this term, I'm trying to keep a balance between both of them. And for the advice for anyone coming in is to be yourself. Very cliche line, be yourself, but be a better version of yourself. I would add, be a better version of yourself. Put up, like when you're out there, you don't have to force yourself to socialize if you don't want to. If you feel like you're uncomfortable, take a break, take a breather. You always have the next term to socialize. For me, term one, I was like, let me get to know everyone first. Then I will be like, I'm more comfortable with this person. Maybe I'll get closer with this person. So good to talk to everyone. You don't have to tell everything about yourself to everyone. Get to know everyone a bit to some extent. Then if you see, okay, there's a spark here, I can talk to her a bit more, she seems like we'll get along well, go ahead, give it a shot. If it works out, amazing. If it doesn't, it's not on you. It's like just things didn't work out, right? So you will eventually along the way find people or find groups of people or someone who would be on the same page as you, or who would, at least if not on the same page, would understand you and you would understand them, which will lead to having a bond between you guys. So it will come naturally. You don't have to really force yourself, but just go with it and see how you fit in yourself. Yeah, that's my advice.
That resonates a lot. I think there's two different approaches. Like one approach is some people will immediately try and find their close group and then spend all of their time with them and hang out with only those 5-6 people. The other approach, which is like my approach, my personal preference, that's just me, I don't want to generalize, is, as you said, casting a wide net, trying to get to know as many people as possible, and then being like, okay, who can I take a relationship deeper with?
Right.
A question which I'll be asking, which I want to ask even of listeners on the episode, I certainly don't have the answers, is I think it's easy to make like a lot of acquaintances at university, people who you say hi, hello to, this is where
Right.
I'm from, this is my major. How do you like make that acquaintance into a friend? And I am absolutely still working on that. Like that's very much a learning journey for me. I'm not there yet. I have a lot of acquaintances at Minerva, very few friends. That's an answer which I think everyone has to find for themselves. Like how do you make your acquaintances into your close friends? But that's a very important question to keep in the back of the mind. What we will do now is dive into our fast fire round of questions.
Right.
This is how I wrap up each and every episode.
Right.
A few quick questions, and the challenge for you is that your answer cannot be longer than like one phrase or one sentence. So it's sort of a more exciting and fast-paced way to
Okay.
wrap up
I
each
like that.
what I do. We will begin with question number one. What would be your plan B major if not for medicine?
Biomedical engineering or automobile engineering.
Okay, interesting. Automobile engineering. Who's the most interesting person you've met over the last few months at U Buckingham or even beyond U Buckingham?
My personal tutor, hands down. Very interesting. Amazing person.
Okay. And what exactly is the role of the personal tutor in essence?
Yeah, personal tutors are like clinical educators. So they are foundation year 1 or 2 or 3 doctors
Okay.
who teach at Buckingham. So we have lecturers and we have personal tutors. So they're like, so not person, we have lecturers and clinical educators. Mostly clinical educators are personal tutors for students, but some lecturers are also personal tutors. So it's like a mentor mentee system. So it's like one personal tutor with 4 students, but you don't all of you don't meet the personal tutor at once. You have like separate meetings. So a personal tutor helps you navigate through med school, asks you about which fields interest you, takes account your grades, your exams. They have access to your examinations, so they know where you did well, where you didn't do well, so they can help you. So they're just like a actual personal tutor, help you personally or throughout med school till you graduate, and help you in terms of academics, personal, social. They're very helpful. A very good initiative. Yeah,
Sounds like a
most of the medical school do that.
Sounds like a good resource. I'm glad that you have someone like that to learn from, like academically as well as non-academically, because they're older than you and they're more
Yeah.
experienced in the field. Number three is one thing you love and one thing you dislike about living in this beautiful small town of Buckingham.
One thing I love how scenic it is. It's very beautiful, pretty to go on walks. It's very
Mhm.
cozy. One thing I dislike is everything closes quite early. I mean, I can't go to a cafe at 6 p.m. Closes very soon, like 5 or something, most of the shops. So, which is a bit unfortunate. So, not a lot of nightlife here, but good enough.
Okay, okay. Any one wise quote that has stuck with you over the years, potentially motivated or inspired you, which you want to be sharing with listeners right now?
Yes, it's a religious quote, a bit more spiritual one. A God doesn't burden you with beyond what you can bear. So he will not give you anything you cannot handle. So
Mm.
whenever something big happens to me, I feel like, okay, God thinks that I can handle it. So I surely have the capabilities. I need to find them and utilize them.
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. And then sort of it is religious in terms of God, but I mean, for the atheist, like myself, this is more like the universal energy or the universe or
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
higher power you sort of believe in. But I really like that. I really like that phrase. That's very inspirational in the sense that any difficulty you're going through right now, some higher intelligence believes that you're like well equipped to handle that. I think that's very like in terms of rising to your challenges. So that's a good one. That's a good one. Lastly, I mean, as a medical student, have to get a study tip out of you at the very end of this episode. What's your pro study tip to anyone in high school currently?
A lot of people would say Pomodoro technique. I'll be like, it's good, but utilize flow time, guys. Flow time is important. Emphasizing again, flow time is important. It corresponds to you being in the zone. A lot of people say, oh, I'm in the zone now. This is the zone. You start working. After when you start working at a point, you'll realize that, oh wait, I am in the zone now. You just want to stick to work, doing work. Utilize that flow time. That's the time you're going to maximize your work a lot. Like,
Mm,
this is like very important. So in having a flow time, like not having means flow time would come to you when you start studying. Utilizing the flow time and being disciplined is
mm,
the most important tips I would give, because discipline I also need to work on, because sometimes one or two bad days and you wake up and you're like, oh god, my head is, because I have migraines sometimes. So you might have issues, but you can always overcome them. I overcome my migraines with different methods. You could do it as well. Yeah.
Lastly, if you had to wrap up what's been a great episode so far, we've covered so many bases, like over just an hour and a half. We talked about UK, Buckingham, application process, time at university, academics, and beyond. And we talked about friendship and social life, which is so crucial. So you've touched upon so many bases. I'm sure it's difficult to like summarize this conversation, but if you had to leave listeners with one final message, high schoolers who are about to get into this journey of university and then enter the real world, I'm sure it's a ton of like roller coaster of ride of emotions, especially for someone working on their applications. What's one last message to all our listeners?
Be true to yourself. Don't lie to yourself, and explore yourself.
Mm. Be true to yourself. Don't
Don't
lie
lie to your.
for yourself. Okay, okay. That's nice. Brilliant. Well, I think we'll wrap up this episode. Before we go, if a listener wants to connect with you or they have follow up questions, what do you think is a good way to reach you?
Yeah, so my email address is famahmed44@gmail.com. You could always drop me an email there. If not, if you find Instagram or social media more comfortable, my email, like my Instagram is, you can just type up Fahmida Zahin. It should pop up.
Awesome. Thank you for your wise words on Uni Unveiled. It was a pleasure to have you on the podcast, Famida.
Again, thank you so much for having me. It was a very amazing experience for myself as well. I introspected a lot about myself in this episode, so I was glad to be here.
All right, that was the episode. To all the young listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you feel more energized, inspired, and curious for the exciting university journey that lies ahead. Stay tuned. Many more wonderful episodes to be released on Uni Unveiled across a diversity of majors, countries, institutions, and speaker profiles. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Uni Unveiled. This podcast is just a small part of a much larger initiative undertaken by my family called Serene Strokes to spread positive sparks of growth, transformation, and joy among all our audience. Check out our official website www.serenestrokes.com. In the description and comments, please feel free to share other topics and questions which you would love to hear about from our different speakers on this podcast. Until then, take care and remember that this big word, university, may not be as scary or as intimidating as you think it is. Thank you for listening to Uni Unveiled.